On this Thursday night, the U.S. president threatens to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
What he's saying about the Strait of Hormuz, plus new projections about where this leaves food and fuel prices. Jam-packed schedule. What's next for the Artemis II mission?
The entire half of the Earth is spectacular.
Building Tempo.
There's a ton of curiosity.
The playbook to create Toronto's new WNBA team. And shell-shocked, how the world's oldest tortoise,
after 200 years of watching humanity, he must be pretty disappointed in us,
became the center of a crypto scam.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. After the U.S. president's address to the nation, hopes have dimmed for a swift end to the war the U.S. and Israel launched more than a month ago. Israel today intercepted another wave of missiles fired by Iran, as Iran vows more crushing attacks to come. And airstrikes on Iran intensified. This bridge under construction cut in half. The country's foreign minister defiant. Striking civilian structures, including unfinished bridges, will not compel Iranians to surrender, he posted. And an Iranian general posting this message to the U.S.: it is you who are taking your soldiers to their graves, not Iran, whom you seek to drag back to the Stone Age. Late today, an extraordinary move by the U.S. Defense Secretary. Pete Hegseth asked the U.S. Army's top general, Randy George, to step down. George was a career officer who served multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. None of this eases the uncertainty about where the war is headed and what it's doing to the global economy, including fuel prices. Jackson Proskow begins our coverage tonight.
If the path to peace runs through the White House, President Donald Trump made it clear he's not ready to walk it yet.
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong.
Wednesday's primetime address was meant to sell war with Iran to a wary American public.
We are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly.
But there was no talk of an exit strategy. And Trump revealed no plan for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, insisting it's not his problem.
We don't need it. The countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage.
Thursday brought faint signs of hope as Oman and Iran reportedly began drafting a protocol to monitor traffic in the strait.
We have seen Iran hijack an international shipping route to hold the global economy hostage.
While the UK led talks with 40 nations, including Canada, on reopening the vital shipping route. The United Nations warned of dire consequences the longer the war drags on.
We are on the edge of a wider war that would engulf the whole Middle East with dramatic impacts around the globe.
There's good reason to fear it won't end soon. On social media, Trump celebrated U.S. strikes on Iran's largest bridge, civilian infrastructure, as he called on Iran to make a deal before it's too late. It's difficult to know who the Americans would make a deal with. One possible negotiator was Iran's former foreign minister, who had reportedly been working on negotiations, working with intermediaries in Pakistan. But he was seriously wounded in an airstrike in Tehran, what Iranian officials are now suggesting was an attempted assassination. Donna?
And Jackson, there was a big change in Trump's inner circle today. He fired Attorney General Pam Bondi. What's behind that?
It seems to be a couple things, most notably the president's dissatisfaction with how Bondi handled the release of the Epstein files, but also her failure to prosecute Trump's political enemies. We don't know who is likely to come next, but it is quite likely that person will come from within Trump's cabinet to avoid another messy confirmation fight.
Okay, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. The French president, who has tried to maintain a friendly relationship with President Trump, today called Trump's shifting statements about the war on Iran unserious, especially when men, women, and children are being killed. And he said Trump's demeaning comments about NATO are unhelpful. Macron was also not happy with Trump's remarks about his marriage.
Then I call up France, Macron, whose wife treats him extremely badly. And he's still recovering from the right to the job.
Macron, on a trip to South Korea, said the disparaging remarks were neither elegant nor up to standard. Investors were watching Trump's speech last night for signs of where this conflict is headed, and his hawkish comments sent oil prices surging higher. The price of the global benchmark of Brent crude rose by 7% to $108 per barrel, and America's benchmark West Texas Intermediate went up by 11%. The higher fuel costs are hitting not just gas pumps, but all parts of the supply chain. Many businesses have been eating those extra costs, but today Amazon added a 3.5% fuel surcharge to its package deliveries. And as Heather Yourex-West explains, the price of other goods, including food, are rising too.
A dump of snow and a jump at the pumps, making for a frustrating day.
Are you worried about it going up more?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think everybody should be. We got to stop the war in Iran, right?
In Calgary, gas prices rose 10 cents overnight Wednesday to hit $1.76.9 a litre, a bargain compared to $2.16.9 in Coquitlam, BC, or the $2 a litre gas now costs in Montreal. This Tesla owner feeling lucky to drive an EV.
Pretty happy, you know. Don't have to look at the pump prices.
We've breached the $1.80 a litre mark for the first time since 2022, and average diesel prices in Canada nearing $2.25 a litre. That could indeed be record-setting here when it does happen over the next 48 hours.
Analyst Patrick DeHaan says the only reason Canada hasn't hit a record high when it comes to gasoline prices yet is because when that record, an average pump price of $2.11, was set back in 2022, Canada's consumer carbon tax was still in place. But if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, he expects Canadian fuel prices to set new record highs in the coming weeks.
That should tell you the dire situation that energy markets are in, with a significant net shortage of oil of 20 million barrels a day.
Now that fuel prices have been high for several weeks, the price of food is expected to follow.
Produce, followed by meat products. Any cold chain products, frozen, fish and seafood, all of these items are likely going to be impacted very, very soon. Probably starting next week, I would say.
I go to my church for groceries.
As Canadians already squeezed by the high cost of living, prepare for even more pain to come. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
The federal Conservative leader wants the government to temporarily suspend federal taxes on gas and diesel. Some countries have already reduced their fuel taxes to help ease the burden on consumers. Pierre Poilievre claims it could knock 25 cents off the price of a litre of gas in Canada. David Akin explains what he's proposing and how the government is responding.
Today, I'm calling on the government to suspend all fuel taxes for the rest of the year.
Cutting gas taxes has been a core Conservative message for years. But the Conservative leader says, with pump prices now spiking by 30%, Canada should do what some other countries have done to help consumers.
Look, Australia cut their excise tax, reducing the price by 26 cents. Spain cut their sales tax on gas, 30 cents a litre lower. Ireland cut its excise tax.
Pierre Poilievre says his proposed tax cut would cost the federal treasury about $6 billion in revenue, which he says could be offset by cuts elsewhere.
It's time to have the government pinch its pennies so that Canadians don't have to.
But the revenue lost if there were to be cuts to fuel taxes could be completely or partially offset because high oil prices inflate Canada's GDP, and that results in higher federal government tax and royalty revenue. That said, experts say high oil prices also come with extra costs for the government. And the Carney government could use any extra revenue to meet, for example, commitments to boost defense spending.
In the context of fiscal realities, other measures we've taken to improve affordability, the persistence of the potential oil price, the higher gas price. So we have to take all of that into account.
The Prime Minister said he'll have an answer on cutting fuel taxes in the government's spring fiscal update. David Akin, Global News, Ottawa.
The astronauts on board Artemis II say they are loving the ride so far and have been given the green light to head to the moon. After the spectacular blast-off Wednesday, the crew is working through critical checks and preparing for the trans-lunar injection burn that will set them on their way around the moon. NASA says the spacecraft is performing well, the astronauts are doing great, and their view is something else.
The view out window 3 from about 38,000 nautical miles, the entire half of the Earth is spectacular.
Mike Armstrong reports on day 2 of their historic journey.
It was a short night's sleep for the Artemis II crew. After just 4 hours, they were woken by music piped in by Master Control, a song called Sleepyhead.
You are free to turn up the lights for a hello.
The crew picked their songs before heading to space, a tradition from the Apollo era.
Booster ignition and liftoff.
Now, the first hours after launch were not without some technical hiccups. There was a brief loss of communications that was ironed out quickly. The astronauts reported being cold in the cabin for a time.
Any chance you can make it warmer?
And there's been an issue with the toilet on board. The crew is having to use what NASA politely calls contingency collection units, basically bags for urine.
The toilet cannot spin up. You can still use it for fecal collection, but you'll have to use CCUs for urine.
There also appears to be a problem with a microphone in the cabin on Orion.
So I'm speaking louder and directly into it. How's that?
Better, but still much lower than when you were on headsets.
Now passing 5,000 miles per hour.
Now, the first 2 days are very much about checking the various systems on the spacecraft, making sure it's ready to head to the moon. Despite a packed day, because the night was so short, the crew took a nap, not because they had free time, but because things are so busy.
So you kind of get into that mode of you sleep when you can, you got to do what you got to do when you have to.
Integrity looks like a good burn.
Now, all that testing work led NASA to pull the trigger. The spacecraft was working well enough for the trans-lunar injection. It's a 6-minute engine burn that tonight pushed the spacecraft on a free drift trajectory around the moon and back. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Quebec's Premier François Legault has attended question period at the National Assembly for the last time as Premier. Legault was applauded after delivering his final speech to his government and the opposition. Legault said he hopes the province strengthens its economy and keeps protecting its values and identity. Legault is stepping down after nearly 8 years in power. His approval ratings have sunk, and his party faces dismal support among voters ahead of elections this fall. His successor will be chosen on April 12th. The federal government is committing tens of millions of dollars to boost Canada's life sciences industry. It includes $79 million for the country's first bioprinting facility for tissue therapeutics.
This is the frontier of science. It is for three-dimensional printed human tissue, and it will help diseases such as diabetes or liver-linked disease. And of course, it will be important for our defense sector. So it's really dual use.
The industry minister also announced $48 million for a new innovation hub at Vancouver's St. Paul's Hospital. The federal government believes the investments will create about 1,000 new jobs and 850 new student positions. Russia's war on Ukraine is unending. The port in Odessa has been hit by Russian drones. Several shipping containers were set on fire, but there were no injuries. And in Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, an apartment block was targeted. Drone strikes caused a large fire there, injuring at least 2 women. An astonishing dust storm has turned the skies over the Greek island of Crete an apocalyptic shade of orange. It's caused by a Saharan dust storm that rolled in from Africa across the Mediterranean. The storm caused some flights to the island to be canceled, and on the Greek mainland, heavy rain and strong winds flooded dozens of homes, knocked out power, downed trees, and killed 1 person near Athens. Pay for plasma concerns. Coming up, why Health Canada is restricting the license of a plasma donation company with centres across Canada. Calgary is lifting its latest round of water restrictions. The city says 9 deteriorating sections of the Bears Paws feeder main have now been reinforced. It's taken 3 weeks to repair the aging infrastructure, and Calgarians were asked to restrict their water usage by things like taking shorter showers, limiting flushing, and washing dishes and clothes sparingly. The city warns those rules will return again this fall when that pipe is scheduled to be replaced entirely. Health Canada has restricted the license of a Spanish company that pays people who donate their plasma. The regulator has imposed conditions it says the company must meet. Inspections found problems at multiple collection sites in Canada, and 2 people in Winnipeg died after donating their plasma. Melissa Ridgen reports.
Grifols, a company that operates 16 pay-for-plasma collection centres in Canada, has been hit with new conditions after failing several Health Canada inspections. Problems include failing to accurately assess donor suitability, thoroughly investigate errors and accidents, and the company was cited for not having enough properly trained staff. The company has been ordered to reduce the number of appointments so staff can follow procedures and strengthen quality checks to identify and address issues quickly. Health Canada says they've required corrective actions from Grifols and will closely monitor progress. However, they say observations were not considered critical and there's no evidence that plasma safety or quality was affected. Health Canada is also investigating the deaths of 2 people less than 4 months apart after they donated at Grifols locations in Winnipeg. Grifols says they're cooperating with Health Canada and don't believe the deaths were related to plasma collection.
Grifols has been found non-compliant more times in just their 3.5 years, they're brand new, of operation than all other blood and blood products collection sites in Canada over the last 14 years.
Ontario, BC, and Quebec banned paid plasma donations, and Manitoba is considering following suit. All of this not good, says Canadian Blood Services. They say the demand for plasma used to make a number of life-saving treatments is expected to grow by 50% in the next 5 years, and say there's a critical need for plasma donors. Donna.
Okay, Melissa Ridgen in Winnipeg, thank you. Ahead, gearing up for game day, how Canada's first WNBA team is getting set for the season. Excitement is building for Canada's first WNBA franchise. The Toronto Tempo tip off their inaugural season on May 8th, but there's lots of work to be done, especially because a labor dispute delayed some of the preparations. Eric Sorensen looks at the crucial pieces that still have to fall into place.
They have brand new merchandise. They have a place to play. There's a lead owner. There's a coach and general manager. There's a president. So what could be missing?
What's missing for the Tempo right now is players.
Right. Just weeks before they take the floor, they have no players. Contentious collective bargaining set the WNBA back for months, so no expansion draft could take place. On Friday, finally, the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire will begin drafting players from existing teams. Coming here means playing on the first WNBA franchise outside the United States.
Talking to a lot of agents and people just within the basketball industry, there's a ton of curiosity. What is Toronto all about? What is Canada all about? So we're excited for people to come here, be part of it, and experience it firsthand themselves.
Which players are available has not been made public. Could the Tempo land a big name such as Brittany Sykes, or a Canadian like Kia Nurse or Bridget Carlton? The new GM questioned the new coach about the new players they're looking for in a hurry.
When we're targeting players, I think number one, we look at talent, but are they good people? Because culture is so big for us and how we want to grow from the ground up.
What's happening now is truly unprecedented.
Almost overnight, the Tempo must build a club in a league that just raised minimum salaries from $60,000 to $300,000 a year.
This is a step in the right direction for women professional athletes to be compensated based upon the value that people attach to the league.
The Tempo's first game ever is just around the corner. Are they ready?
We don't have a single player as I talked to you today, so it's not a stretch to say we aren't ready, but what I can guarantee is we will be ready.
Tickets go on sale for Tempo games here starting next week. There's the expansion draft, the college draft, free agent signings. All of the players will have to be brought in for practices, preseason games. It will be a whirlwind, but the first regular season game for the Toronto Tempo will happen in just 5 weeks. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Next, call it a shell game. Wild talk about the world's oldest tortoise. If you live to be more than 100 years old, you've seen it all. But Jonathan the tortoise could never have comprehended what's happened to him. He's almost 200 years old and has been caught up in a crypto scam. As Taria Isria explains, reports of his death have been greatly exaggerated.
Jonathan the tortoise has roamed the earth for nearly 2 centuries. He's seen world wars, the fall of empires, and even his own fake death.
I definitely give 5 out of 5 stars here for the creativity of the scammers.
So just after he was landed.
The scam revolved around Joe Hollins, the veterinarian who looks after the Seychelles giant tortoise on a remote island in the South Atlantic.
I'm in my profession because I love animals, and I've got here the oldest known living land animal in the world.
A social media account claiming to be Hollins made a sad announcement, heartbroken to share that our beloved Jonathan, the world's oldest living land animal, has passed away today peacefully on St. Helena. The news quickly spread on the BBC, USA Today, and the Daily Mail. Jonathan, who met the late Queen when she was a princess, passes away peacefully.
She wed the man who was to become king.
The tortoise was even alive when Queen Victoria reigned. This is the oldest known photograph of him, taken in 1886. He was believed to be born in 1832. The bicentennial tortoise has lived long enough to fall prey to a 21st century con job.
Breaking. Did the world's oldest tortoise just die at 193?
The social media post was a hoax. Even Wikipedia was duped, listing Jonathan's death as April 1st, 2026. It wasn't an April Fool's joke, but an imposter posing as the vet to gain sympathy and collect cryptocurrency donations.
Well, I think after 200 years of watching humanity, he must be pretty disappointed in us.
The governor of St. Helena set the record straight with this proof-of-life photo. A cautionary tale about a slow-moving animal and the high speed of disinformation. Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
Jonathan looks oblivious. That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Louis S. St. Laurent building, the old post office in Quebec City. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Colleen Christie will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.